Our world is rapidly changing. Digital technologies and data are changing to health and the design of health systems, but governance models haven't kept up. This creates uneven effects globally. The Lancet and Financial Times Commission, Governing Health Futures 2030, Growing Up in a Digital World, shows how digital transformations are changing our health futures. In October 2019, 19 commissioners were brought together to develop the report. These commissioners considered a wide range of governance approaches, ethical guidelines, and institutional responsibilities that must be considered to improve health and well-being in an increasingly digital world. Commission meetings prompted open dialogue and shaped the heart of the commissioners' report. The Commission engaged with stakeholders, including various international organizations, non-governmental organizations, and decision-makers at the global and regional levels. The novelty of this collaboration between the Lancet and the Financial Times also allowed for private sector engagement without compromising the independence of the Commission. There were three key findings. First, young people's experiences growing up in a digital world are just as diverse as their lived experiences. They are excited about the benefits digital transformations will have for their health and well-being, but they are concerned about online risks, finding trustworthy information, knowledge on how their data is being used, and whether these technologies are grounded in human rights. Secondly, the Commission identified a solidarity-led approach to health data and addressing digital determinants of health to be important for maximizing the public health value of digital transformations. However, these are missing from most governance approaches. Lastly, we discovered that all countries are looking to use digital technologies to improve their health services and make better use of their health data. Most countries have already developed digital health strategies, but they are yet to adopt an approach based on the principles of data solidarity, digital trust, accountability, and public participation. The Commission found that these principles are key to advancing health equity and resolving privacy concerns. Digital transformations have the potential to improve everyone's health and will allow young people to have a role in making decisions about their health futures. But this is only possible if collective action is taken to strengthen the governance of digital technologies and data, so they benefit everyone. For this to happen, governments, companies, and other organizations must take collective action by building a governance architecture that fosters trust, addresses the role of digital technologies as determinants of health, enacts a new approach to data collection and usage based on data solidarity, and invest in the enablers of digital transformations for public health and UHC. Our health futures are being decided now. If governments and companies adopt a value-based approach to governing digital transformations, everyone will move one step closer to reaching a sustainable future where health for all is realized.
Good to see Professor Anurag Agarwal, our eminent speaker today, and then also Dr. Rohini today. I would like to quickly introduce them. Professor Anurag Agarwal is the Dean of Biosciences and Health Research at Trivedi School of Biosciences at Asoka University, India, and he's also the former director of the Institute of Genomics and Integrative Biology, a national laboratory of Center for Science and Research in India. And after graduating his medical education from the premier All India Institute of Medical Sciences in Delhi, he further trained in internal medicine, pulmonary disease, and critical care at Baylor College of Medicine, Houston, and followed by a PhD in physiology in Delhi University. His primary research is respiratory biology, and broader interests are now in the new vision for health and healthcare as seen through the lens of emerging technologies such as genomics and artificial intelligence. And he serves as the national think tank and expert groups and co-chairs the Lancet and Financial Times Commission on governing digital health futures and serves on related expert groups convened by the World Health Organization and Global Partnership for Artificial Intelligence. He received the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize for Science and Technology in 2014 and Sun Pharma Research Award in 2020. And he's also an elected fellow of the Indian National Science Academy and then Indian Academy of Sciences. Welcome, Professor Anurag Agarwal. It's a pleasure for AHIN to have you with us. Let me also introduce the co-speaker, Dr. Rohini Dutta. Dr. Rohini Dutta is a medical graduate from Christian Medical College, Ludhiana in Punjab. And she's also a global surgery fellow at WHO Collaborating Center for Research in Surgical Delivery in Low and Middle Income Countries. She was one of the recipients of the Women of the Future Award, India in 2021. Her clinical and research work currently focuses on increasing access to surgical and obstetric care in low resource settings and marginalized communities and leveraging digital technology in healthcare sector to accelerate solutions towards achieving universal health coverage. She has served as president of Asian Medical Students Association in India and collaborated with the Indian Development Foundation on Project 1 Million with its mission to supply 1 million girls with a reproductive age with free sanitary pads and menstrual hygiene products. She joined the Harvard Program for Global Surgery and Social Change in July 2022. Welcome, Dr. Rohini Dutta. And then now I would like to also mention that we also have panelists, 3 of them who will be joining this webinar and giving the reactions. Over to you, Professor Anurag Agarwal. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Udayasankar. It's a wonderful to be here, sharing our thoughts on this very distinguished network. And I think you have my slides now visible to you. And
yes,
Professor.
Very briefly introduce what we'll be talking about. The Lancet and Financial Times got together to consider what would be health futures in 2030, especially for young people growing up in a digital world. We know that digital transformation is occurring in every sphere of life, but health is not just everything. Health has huge elements of equity, social justice, and health is generally, when you speak about it, automatically health for all. So what we were looking at very specifically is the convergence of digital health, particularly from the point of view of AI and other frontier technologies. And we use Sonier's definition for digital health, which includes things like genome, because today even the genome is editable. So in a sense, we are truly digital people subject to a lot of change. And obviously, when you think of these things, you have to think of universal health coverage, but most importantly, the health and well-being of future generations, which is the entire idea behind sustainable goals. So I was lucky to have a very senior, distinguished chair with me, Professor Ilona Kitbush, who led a lot of the work, and some very, very distinguished commissioners. And you can see we have good global representations, people from a variety of backgrounds, from ambassadors to ministers, to doctors, to technologists. We also had a very importantly, a young team, because only old people speaking about health futures for young people does not make any sense. So we had people with a medical, research, general public, social service backgrounds, and we had regional youth champions speaking about what is important to young people, because we realized that's not necessarily what's important to older people. The way the commission worked was very simple. We had multiple meetings where the commissioners sat down and discussed what is it that's really important. We took inputs from a separate meetings of the young people in the youth network. We did a call for people to join these networks, and together we finalized a report that was published last year. Very briefly, what we found over these multiple discussions is that there is a narrow understanding of digital health that pervades most spaces, but does not fully recognize the challenges of governing the digital transformation of health systems, which will not be just about telemedicine or AI in health. It will be about the intersection of health in a completely digital world. We also recognize that the classical divisions of global north and global south were not really applicable. So for example, countries like India, very much in the global south, when you look at many indicators of development, when it looks at digital transformation of society, may be running far ahead of many countries in the global north. So the traditional divisions are broken, and we need to start seeing from where can you find what useful experience that can be there for the world, And this we thought was very timely. And the fact it is participatory and includes young people was innovative. We had three key findings. The first was about the digital determinants of health themselves. And the basic idea is that when most people think of digital health, we think about accessing healthcare by digital technologies, which could be chatbots, which could be the internet, which could be simple telemedicine, which could be the Internet of Things, some wearables, but that's not really it. If you start thinking of health from the time of wellness, most young people are actually well. They're not seeking control of hypertension or diabetes. They are looking at digital as a way of engaging with the world. That digital access influences their mental health, their growth, their ability to participate as a digital citizen in this world. And this digital determinant of health is much larger in concept and scope than typical ways of telemedicine alone. And addressing this digital determinant of health, including digital access to all young people, is critical for maximizing the public health value, in which information starts flowing to you, advice starts flowing to you, matters that are most important to young people, matters related to sexual health, mental health, bullying, these information come to you easily. And we realize that this in itself then gets complicated. Digital access for people cannot be separated from social, political, and commercial. In fact, the incentives for people to build a digital infrastructure may come from commerce and trade. And only there can you become a beneficiary on the health side. So to think about it holistically is critical. And again, India was a good example where introduction of digitalization was primarily done for commerce and economy. And then, of course, is now influencing health, as we saw in the COVID pandemic. But in a complex system like this, any simple set of regulations is unlikely to work. Any simple discussion on data, with the people owning their own data and people having to give consent, they're fundamentally not the right way of thinking about it. Think about how many times you check a box saying okay and give consent to things on the internet. Informed consent is almost impossible. What you need is a value-based framework for governing health futures, and you need the concept of solidarity, a solidarity of purpose, trust in each other, and there can be no trust without transparency of actions and a pinning of everything into human rights and accountability and public participation. So health for all is the fundamental value that we thought was important, and this is coupled to the idea of putting young people at the center. And young people itself is a very heterogeneous word, not only by age. Obviously, young person of 6 years is very different from a young person of 16 years is different from a young person of 26 years. And we don't call people old anymore, so I'll not say where old starts. What we mean is there's also diversity based on the conditions in which they live, the socioeconomic status, the region of the world. And all these things are important, and getting their viewpoints is critical in policy development or tech development. Not everything that is digital needs to be high-tech. Low-cost digital things can often have the greatest impact, and who better to innovate in these areas than young people themselves. We looked at digital childhood profiles in a variety of things, starting all the way on the left to literacy, access to health services, income, looking at people who might be excluded, people with limited, and there might be even people who are immersed, going towards the right side, which have completely different concerns, such as harmful or exploitative contents, etc. In the end, I will not leave you with any single one-size-fits-all solution, because that is simply impossible. All that I would say is that the underpinning of any successful solution for any country must be unique to itself in terms of its contexts, but must follow the universal principles of a human rights-based approach, fostering digital skills, education, innovation, and strong and inclusive health governance, and asking the youth everywhere in the world, what do you want to see in the future, is critical, because they will be the drivers of change. They are the ones who are the natively digital citizenship, and they are the ones who care most about equality. I'm going to end by pointing out our 4 recommendations. Not only recognize, but address the role of digital technologies, including access, as a determinant of health. Focus on governance architectures that foster trust. Do things in a transparent way because digital allows that. Think of health data as a digital public good, but you cannot build a public good without trust. But if you are able to, it will increase the public value of data. And last, invest in the enablers of digital transformation specific to public health, not just individual health. Individual health driven by commerce may progress even without any enablers. And in fact, we don't even know it will reach desired outcomes. But public health enablers are absolutely critical at a global scale. Towards this, we are now trying to create a digital transformation of Health Lab, a multidisciplinary platform, generating cutting-edge thinking, shifting public and political agendas, strengthening youth leadership and driving innovation disruption. One of the hubs will be in India at Ashoka University. Others are scattered around the world between Geneva, Nigeria, Canada. And we look forward to working with all of you towards this very important problem for the future. And thank you all very much. I think I'll stop here and give over to Rohini. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anurag. I will tell you about some of the work we've been doing to better understand young people's experiences of digital transformations and their ideas, hopes, and fears for their health futures. Addressing the positive and negative health impacts of the digital transformations during childhood and adolescence is crucial for reducing social and economic burdens of disease later in life. And as you know, young people's health and well-being has been a central concern to the Commission. Young people are typically more connected to the internet and eager to use digital technologies compared to older population groups. And as such, young people are exceptionally exposed to potential harms that might derive from digital transformations of health and other sectors. Young people, as Dr. Anurag rightly said, played an important role in shaping the Commission's report. And there are several examples of that I would like to share with you today to better explain how the Commission strived for this innovative and inclusive approach of engaging young people. First, instead of having one young commissioner, the Commission was supported by a youth team of regional youth champions, and it has been my privilege to be serving as one of them alongside other young researchers and health advocates. The Commission's work continues to be informed and amplified by our youth network and a team of regional youth champions. We also organized a series of consultations with young people from around the world to hear their priorities and propose solutions in respect to digital transformations in health. We asked, what do you want to see in the future of health governance? Their response focused on three main aspects. First, the right to digital health and a human's right-based approach to digital health must be recognized. Secondly, they wanted to see the fostering of digital health skills, which is vital for innovation, trust, and equitable uptake. And third, they wanted youth to be involved as equal stakeholders throughout the continuum of research and learning, as well as innovation, program development, and policy-making decisions. It was the first time that the Lancet published a partnering document to a Commission report that was completely authored by young people. Additionally, these messages were fully incorporated into the Commission's report. Another example of how the Commission included young people in its work was through a U-Report global survey on young people's views about digital health. More than 23,000 children and youths took part from 176 countries. Young people told the Commission that they are already using technologies to support their health and well-being and are excited and optimistic about the benefits of digital transformations. However, they are concerned about the risks and their exposure to online, the reliability of health-related information, and about what happens to their personal data. Through a specific research project with African countries with the largest population of youth, the Commission found that despite young people being uniquely equipped to shape positive health futures, the views and concerns of young people are almost never prioritized in digital health strategies. Moreover, they're seldomly involved in policy development or technology development. Our interactions with young people confirm that there is no universal experience of growing up in a digital world, and based on the consultations and surveys, interviews, and research, we developed a 6 digital childhood profile, ranging from digitally excluded people to digitally consumed. To enable all young people to flourish in a digital world, their different realities must be considered by policymakers and other stakeholders committed to harnessing digital transformations. Governance of these transformations in health and other sectors must consider young people as a heterogeneous group with different needs, experiences, and evolving capacities. Further research is required to uncover exactly how many young people fall within each of these 6 groups. Better understanding of the digital childhood profiles within a country or a subnational region will help policymakers to make investments and address gaps in policy or legislation that best serve current and future generations. As well as researching young people's experience of digital transformations, we also launched a joint initiative with UNICEF of imagining health futures with young people. With the hope of harnessing storytelling and creativity, we held 13 writers' rooms spanning across 20 countries. Young people shared their ideas with science fiction authors who were inspired to write stories about potential health futures. Last December, we launched the Imagining Health Futures anthology of stories, which reflect on themes such as health inequities, youth innovators, mental health, and the environment. A major takeaway from the Commission's work is that young people must be enfranchised to co-design and critically engage with all stages of digital health policy and technology development from inception to implementation. Successful digital transformations of health cannot ignore the priorities of young people who stand to inherit the governance models designed today. Fully engaging young people proved to be a critical asset for the Commission. As we move into the next stage of our work, focused on implementing the Commission's recommendations, we will continue to be inclusive and participatory with concerned efforts to strengthen the leadership of young people and support them to become informed digital health citizens. We are planning some innovative youth-driven projects to foster the participatory design and governance of digital-first health systems that are responsive to young people's well-being and health priorities. Health futures are being decided now, and you can help to shape them. For more information, please visit our website and follow us on Twitter. Thank you so much.
Let me also take this opportunity to introduce Louise Hawley, who is with us and one of the most important brains behind everything we talked about today, as well as content of this video. Louise, would be nice to just have you also say hello.
You've put me on the spot. Thank you very much. Nice to see everybody.
Back to the program.
Hi, Dr. Anurag. I think
Hi,
nice to meet you again.
Good to see you.
And we it is really good opportunity to listen to the origin or the commission who commissioned this report. We have read it from Lancet and Financial Times report several. I think on last year before during COVID, and then we got a lot of insight on that. But listen to this summarization and the finding and the recommendation is good. My question is that in your last slide, you're talking about the recommendation. Recommendation to who? That first question. Another question is that the concept of the governance, what is mean by governance in this context? The reason I ask because of I'm researching on the digital health governance mechanisms, focus on the digital health governance to improve the health system in Thailand recently, and we have some recommendation to have that mechanism. At first, I think your report may be similar to what I doing the research, but it seems like the governance, what you say and I'm doing is a different kind of the aspect of the governance. So thank you. That is 2 questions. Recommend to
very much.
What is the governance in this context?
Yes. Thank you very much. And I'm sure that you recognize some of the similarities with the discussions we were all having together, the Digital Health Technical Advisory Group at the WHO. So all our recommendations to governance are to policymakers. And when we speak about this governance, we are talking about a set of rules that will govern how data can be used as a primary, collected at one level, but used as the primary level. And to explain this point a bit further, as you have seen as many people have seen, today we are moving with the digital privacy rights kind of an approach to a consent architecture in which data is almost not being debated as belonging to the person, and a consent-based architecture is being considered as a primary way of using the data. What we actually suggest here is that this is something that is actually favorable to big companies. If you can offer a little product and you can make people check a box, and after checking the box, you have access, it's actually a very asymmetric playing field. What you really want is the idea of health data as a digital public good, and the governance to be both lean in the sense there are less regulations surrounding its use, not cumbersome, onerous mechanisms that only big companies can crack, but also balanced, so that all people who use the data are committed to a core set of principles that bring benefit back to the people from whom the data was used, and consent to that principles will be sufficient for most purposes. And now getting technical, use of privacy preserving architectures. You can think of federated learning as an example that allow this kind of a trusted data sharing in a manner that, accumulating data would never do. So when we speak of governance, a lot of it is data governance. When we speak of target, it is mostly policy makers, but part of it is philosophical agreements on purpose, and part of it is technical in terms of architectures. I hope that answered your question, partially at least.
Prof, I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you for the presentation. I was interested when you're talking about participatory design. So you are trying to say that we bring in young people and understand their view and needs in making policy development. As a policy maker, does the paper actually recommend how do we do it? Because I cannot imagine how are we going to bring the young people in our policy making. Yeah,
I see where you're going, and perhaps I will let Rohini answer this after me. But of course, by young, we don't mean very young. We mean people old enough to be digital users. And first and most important, we mean what is actually important to them. My own learning from this exercise was that when I joined the commission, I was thinking of disease, because by the age most commissioners are, they are faced with disease. But when we spoke to young people, most of them, disease was the farthest thing from their mind. It was about social engagement, safe use, prevention of exploitation, mental health, reproductive health questions, and almost none of it was stuff that I would think of as a primary thing to bring regulation around. So they wanted to share on communities, but they wanted to make sure their sharing does not lead to exploitation. So, and this could be as simple as on a gaming platform, people getting together and discussing things, something completely different from what I would conventionally think of as health. But I will hand over to Rohini on this for further thoughts.
Thank you so much. I think one way of getting participation is through a town hall, inviting students from different universities, from different backgrounds, not necessarily just medical students, bringing them together and asking them questions on what they think is important, how giving them maybe a document on the current policy, asking them to pre-read, and then bringing forth their views. I think WHO also does a youth town hall once a year in the different regions. So something like that could be very useful in beginning a participatory design for policy change.
Yes, thank you, Professor Agarwal and Dr. Rohini, as well as Dr. Bunchai and Dr. Fazila. Now I would like to take some time to briefly introduce our invited panelists for this session. So we have three more young leaders with us tonight. First, we have Ms. Alia Evangelista from the Asia eHealth Information Network. She completed her Master of Science in Biomedical and Health Informatics degree at the Faculty of Tropical Medicine, Mahidol University. We also have Ms. Jocelyn Te, who's a research pharmacist working at the Institute for Clinical Research, National Institutes of Health, Malaysia. She's recently completed her master's in data science and clinical informatics, also at Mahidol University. Her research interest is in ways to improve diabetes care and primary care services, and she's also part of the current AHIN Secretariat team. And of course, last but not least, we have Miss Kesha Agripo, who might also be familiar with some of you because she has participated in an AHIN discussion before. She's a medical intern at the Philippine General Hospital. She also held various leadership roles in the Association of Philippine Medical Colleges Student Network and at the Social Civic Division and Alumni Affairs Division in the Regionalization Students Organization of the University of the Philippines College of Medicine. So maybe first call on Miss Aliyah to share her thoughts.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to see very familiar faces also in the AHIN team. I guess my first comment in the presentation is on the recommendation number 2 on the need to build a governance architecture that creates trust in digital health by enfranchising patients and vulnerable groups, ensuring health and digital rights, and regulating powerful players in the digital health ecosystem. So I guess building an architecture is a sophisticated way of saying we have a plan. But more than just a plan, placing the concept of architecture in governance ensures that decisions made by every nation, country, or a policy-making body are built for scale, where every sector or population is considered and consulted. For example, ministries of ICT should heavily depend on ministries of health in terms of scaling up deployment of digital vaccination certificates for international travel, since it is primarily made for traveling overseas and not to mandate or demand the use of this digital vaccination certificates for local travel, because this will definitely increase the usability of this digital vaccination certificates. I'm saying this because privacy-wise, every country should think about the repercussions of this move in terms of ethics and use of vaccination certificates, because sometimes sharing too much data in terms of vaccination and mobility would bar people from entrusting their data for healthcare. And that would maybe also another way of seeing things differently in terms of sharing health data. So I have other comments in the other recommendations, but I guess we could start on that part of the discussion at this juncture.
Yes, thank you, Miss Aliyah. Maybe next we can have Jocelyn.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the talk. I think my comment would be I really like the profile that was shown, the digital childhood profile, highlighting the range of literacy levels, access of different of children. And I think one hand we have a youth who have a lot of information, and the other hand we have people who cannot have access to healthcare even. So my question, one comment is, how do we, other than be aware of this existence, is there any recommendations that we could try to reduce this gap, because we are trying to work into universal health coverage? So any recommendations on this to work on that? And then maybe parents' literacy level is one of the factors that might lead to all these different levels of literacy and also access. So maybe we could, just my comment, maybe parents' literacy level could also be part of the recommendation. Yeah, over.
Yes, thank you, Jocelyn. Then next, maybe we can have Keisha.
Good evening, everyone. It is a very interesting and very enabling presentation. I think coming from the perspective of the youth, I was particularly curious regarding the governing health data to increase its public value. The first part of the presentation, where it included how youth in a sense could contribute to this discourse because they have these different ideas that are different from the topics of health that we are used to, because right now in our digital world, there are other concerns that are very interesting. Like for youth, it's more important to talk about mental health issues. It's more important to talk about social discourses that impact their life daily. And this opportunity to integrate the youth also poses an opportunity to maximize how we can reach primary healthcare through families. So in the integration of digital health, we entered an era of telemedicine. And from this, we have seen a transition in how families would go and improve their health-seeking behaviors, their access to healthcare, their concern with their health literacy and education, especially with vaccinations, immunizations. And we can see this shift in how families drive also their children to be more concerned with their health and how they integrate this into their everyday living. And having this in the recommendation is actually very hopeful in our generation, that we're really fostering towards a more primary healthcare approach where we go deeper into local issues of children, of the youth, and how it really impacts health policy in the sense that it becomes more relevant to the people that we are trying to improve their lives with. So, that would be one of the main points that I really appreciated in this presentation. And to add to that, I think we were discussing also on how to really mobilize this movement in concrete ways. And I think coming from the perspective of someone who's also been doing organizational work, I've seen a lot of organizations, a lot of people from different sectors in the Philippines who are also working towards the same projects, the same advocacies. And I realized how there are so many people working towards the same goal, and yet we don't have this avenue, this social hub to collaborate and integrate the same ideas and improve them all together with our own experiences, so that each project becomes more of an improvement to the next. It would be great to have this social hub where previous projects could work on improving from the contribution of others who have also done the same, and eventually create this solidarity or this movement where there's already an input of good practices that can be integrated well, because it's already relevant to different sectors, it's already been practiced, and it's already been done. So it's very exciting how we see progress when there's really a movement to collaborate with different sectors, with different perspectives of people who want the same thing, which is to really integrate digital health literacy and transform our health landscape into a more socially relevant and very proactive direction. Thank you.
Yes, thank you to our three panelists. We would also like to invite our participants to send in their questions if they have any, or if you have any other comments that you would like to add to the presentation, please feel free to do so. While waiting, Dr. Rohini and Professor Agarwal, are there things you would like to add to the comments that were made?
Sure. In fact, since it is about young people, let me have Rohini go first with her reactions to these wonderful comments, and I will follow that. Rohini.
Yes. Thank you so much for your wonderful comments and your very apt questions. I think I'll take the point about digital literacy. When I was going through the report and when I was getting accustomed to the work of the Commission, that was the first emerging point in my head as well. And the Commission has rightly defined that health literacy needs to come with the digital and civic literacy. And there are definitions for that in the report as well that you can take up. And I think the 6 spectrums that were being talked about of how someone is digitally cautious, digitally immersed, digitally intermittent, and so on, they depend on a variety of factors like the person's household income, their exposure, their level of education, and that's also where digital and health literacy comes in, and how much they are using these technologies to be aware of any risks or potential harms, and then further how to mitigate those harms is the next step. So I think working on those factors with governments, trying to find out the number. So the commission has brought about that 3.6 billion young people are currently using digital technologies, but how many of them fall in those 6 categories is the next step to find out the risk factors that allow them to fall specifically in those categories, and then how to navigate them into making them digitally cautious and digitally immersed citizens.
Thanks, Rohini. Let me, all the questions and comments were great. Let me outline general principles by which one can approach some of these things. One way is to have a desired future in your mind. When we chose the word governing health futures, we recognize there are multiple possible futures ahead of us, each depending upon the choices we make. If we are able to say, this is the future that we want, we can work backwards from there to some of the choices we need to make so as to get to that particular future. Now, if I were to imagine what is it that the commissioners and the young people had in mind, was a system where people, while they generate data as users of the digital world, do not need to worry that that data would be used against them, while feeling secure that that data could be used to help not only their own health, but that of other people. If I were to narrow it down, this is what it would be. So essentially, what architecture would there be that allows you to gather data about people, not use it against a specified person, but use it for benefit of many people? Would it be a model in which you say the data belongs to the person or to the person who generates the data? Either of those models you can defend in some way or the other. But the problem is, if you believe the data belongs to the person who is the person from whom the data is taken, then you're assuming certain things about identifiable data and so on, which need not be true. If you assume all data belongs to the people who generate the data, then you've already sown the seeds of great inequity. Because obviously the people, the companies on whom the data will be generated, the platforms, will come from only a few parts of the world, and those parts of the world would not be where the majority of the people live. So in the interest of equity, you must find a balance between both. You must preserve the rights of the people contributing the platforms and the people on whom, who are actually living in this world. And that's why we thought of the digital public goods and privacy preserving architectures that limit the possible misuse. Nothing can ever prevent it. You can only limit the misuse, reduce the potential, while giving people confidence that by and large, they are safe. So this is roughly what we thought of when we were thinking of data sharing. And all this can only happen if you promote this as a concept. You promote this idea, not of altruism. Altruism was about undergoing suffering to do something for someone else. This is simply being a good citizen. And what that good data citizenship implies is what we were trying to bring out. And I think a lot more work needs to occur. This is simply the basic foundational principles that we tried to articulate. I'll stop here.
Yes, thank you again, Dr. Rohini and Professor Agrawal. Are there any questions from our participants?
I have a comments rather than the question. I have a comment.
Sure, please.
I think the one thing that I really liked the commission report is that digital health is the determinant of health. It's really true because of the young people, the new generation are digital native. You are digital citizen. When you born, you just export to the internet, export to the World Wide Web, but it's not our age. We are the digital migrant. And that's why the perspective through the digital and the effects of the digital society affect different generation differently. That I think the commission define the digital health as the determinant of health is true, because of once you born in the digital environment, then those are the environment that affect health. You can sit, look at the screen all day long, and you don't exercise, you don't go to kind of the playing at the playground like our age when we were young. So that is the one big thing. And another thing is that the concern of the health and when exposed to digital is another point. One point that I think this report talking a little bit in a very high level and also focus on the digital health data governance, privacy, how it harm or not. But in the WHO ITU e-health model, or in the national e-health strategy, governance and leadership at the time is more on the mechanism to governing the information system or the e-health or the digital health, which is part of the 6 building blocks of the health system. So the architecture, when we talking in the language in this commission and the language of the WHO ITU recommendation, even in the same term, but the concept might be a little bit different. So for you as the young audience, distinguish this kind of thing will help you more on understanding of what we are talking about in the context. Like earlier talking about the architecture and the governance, I think the more she talking is more on the WHO ITU part. But Professor Anurag and Rohini is the more on the kind of the very big picture of governing the system, the society. That is my comment. Over to you.
I think it's an absolutely perfect comment, and you're absolutely correct. When ITU speaks of data governance, they are already defining the architectures that are necessary for the use today. And we thought a lot about that, and we realized that, for us as a longer term report, it is more important to get the principles than to define. Because, for example, if you look at my government, they are thinking of de-identified hashed records, connected, aggregated, and made available for research. And many of us know the word de-identification itself is a very interesting word. And re-identification. So does re-identification mean, can I tell this record belongs to that person with a specific name? That's very hard to do. Many de-identification strategies can achieve that. But if you change the re-identification question to this, can I get a probability estimate of the likelihood of this record belonging to that particular pile of people who are high risk for insurance? And that probability score is derivable. And some data like genome data is absolutely, you can never completely de-identify it. You will always learn something about it. So we thought that because we took digital health in a larger context of the Saunier definition, which includes the futures of genomes and all those things, that we would stay with on this particular note on a high level architecture, because we were aware that, ITU was coming out and many others, and then follow this up with the digital transformation labs, where we take specific questions such as what you just mentioned, Bunchai, regarding the architectures and which type of architecture which might suit which type of data, where there is any one size fits all at the architecture level. And computer science will also keep growing as we keep talking. So it's going to be a very interesting decade, or perhaps multiple decades to come. And I look forward to the young people in this room becoming champions of the principles as well as the specifics. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Punchai, Professor Agarwal, and Dr. Rohini. I think we have no more questions in the chat box. And Thank you once again for making time to share your study and your experiences here on AHIN Hour. I would also like to thank our participants for actively joining tonight's session. Before we wrap up this session, I would like to take this opportunity to invite you all to another webinar tomorrow with Dr. Leo Anthony Selly from MIT. You're all very much welcome to join us again. And before we end, maybe Dr. Bunchai can take the floor to promote our upcoming event.
I would like invite Jai to kind of the closing this a very interesting webinar. Over to you, Jai.
Thank you, Dr. Bunchai. Thank you, Professor Anurag and Dr. Rohini. And then it's a pleasure to have you both with us. And then it was very, very helpful. And then what I liked best was very crisp explanations and then very interesting, actually, the comments and discussion. I only wish that probably we could have had more time, but then it was like we ended right on time. That's something that, we sometimes run over, and this was perfect timing. And my only request to you, Professor Anurag, is AHIN is organizing our annual general meeting from 10th to 12th in Manila. And then this year, we have a very limited in-person participation, but mostly virtual. I would like to have you joining the health data governance workshop, which we are planning on the 10th. And then I would like to have the secretariat send the invitation to you, if you could at least virtually join and then quickly make an intervention, because what you said today is very, very relevant to the workshop. We would like to have you there with us.
It'll be my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Rohini. And then thank you, Yoselin, Aliyah, and Agripe. Nice to have you all join and then add the perspectives of the young leaders, emerging leaders. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.